activities, other than those that have to do with national security. The new Complaint Review Commission could lead its own investigations. I'm sorry, I must interrupt the honourable member for Orléans and say that you will have 4 minutes remaining after question period in order to finish your speech. We will now move on to statements by members.
The honourable member for Oakville North Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tuesday is the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, giving us a chance to recognize the amazing Canadian women who've trailblazed a path for the next generation of female astronauts, doctors, and engineers. Too often, young women face barriers in pursuing a career in the sciences. More needs to be done to highlight the Canadian women who are currently pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Sheila Singh and Dr. Juliet Daniel at McMaster University, my colleague, the member for Etobicoke North, and Canada's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Teresa Tam. These exceptional students are showing our young women that no job is too big, no challenge is too insurmountable, and no disease is incurable if you work hard and surround yourself with a team as diverse as our country. Thank you for inspiring the next generation of women scientists.
The honourable member for Denity, Mississippi Churchill River.
Madam Speaker, the Meadow Lake Lions Club was chartered in 1962 and has been very successful in raising money for the community and for aid around the world ever since. Locally, annual donations have provided everything from scooters to eyeglasses for those in need, as well as student trips to Ottawa, Australia, Europe, and Africa. The Meadow Lake Hospital Foundation has received over $100,000 in the past few years for much-needed hospital equipment. There have been contributions to the arena, the curling rink, the swimming pool, and to schools for playground equipment. However, Lions Park has been their pride and joy since it opened in 1983. Approximately $400,000 has been devoted to this jewel of Meadow Lake. Mr. Speaker, I recently had the privilege of presenting Lion, Bill Hart, a certificate for 50 years of service. This is outstanding volunteerism. I ask all members to join me in recognizing Bill Hart and the rest of the Meadow Lake Lions Club for their incredible contributions to our small community.
The honourable member for Château-de-l'École.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In honour of Black History Month, I'd like to acknowledge the tremendous work of the Châteauguay Horizon Community Association, founded in 1994 by the late businessman and philanthropist Clinton Ritchie, and now headed by the illustrious Uton McLean. Horizon's mission is to support, financially and personally, promising students in our Black community. Young people who have excelled and recently received scholarships include Kyle Briggs in physiotherapy, Ashik Hines in primary education, and Shanice Madison in forensic medicine.
These are financed by wonderful community suppers where all are welcome. Madam Speaker, you have not tasted jerk chicken or fried plantain until you have enjoyed these delicacies as cooked up by Hazel, Patricia, and the other terrific volunteers at Horizon.
The honourable member for Esquimalt Saanich-Sooke.
In Canada, we are seeing rapidly rising rates of new HIV infections in Indigenous communities for racialized Canadians and among young gay men. Over the last 2 years, the UK and New South Wales managed to decrease new HIV infections by 30 to 40%, while Canada saw an 11% increase. Science tells us that people knowing their status is the key to decreasing infection rates. In December 2018, I asked the Prime Minister to expedite approval for new HIV self-tests, Canadian technology that's been in use in other countries since 2012, and more than a year later, we're still waiting. Taking the low-cost steps of making home testing widely available, eliminating the need to see doctors to get tested, and making retrovirals and PrEP readily available to high-risk populations will get us to the United Nations HIV/AIDS program 90-90-90 goals. Having 90% living with HIV knowing their status, 90% in treatment, and 90% with viral suppression would put Canada on the path to ending the HIV/AIDS epidemic once and for all.
The honourable member for Milton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For February, I wanted to underscore the importance of Black History Month.
The town of Milton is officially recognizing Black History Month with a proclamation at Town Hall on Monday, February 10th at noon. The Canadian Caribbean Association of Halton has exhibits and shows across Halton throughout the month, and I encourage everyone to check the schedule. I'd like to highlight the contributions of two amazing Black women from my riding. Cheryl Hales is a celebrated Black woman from Milton who led a delegation to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York. She's one of CFUW Milton's 100 women of the past 100 years. Kayla Alexander is Milton's hometown basketball superstar and also the author of a book for children, The Magic of Basketball. Yesterday, she led Team Canada to victory over Belgium and went 5 for 7 for shooting for 12 points. I'd encourage everyone in Canada to check out the local schedules for Black History Month and get out to an event in February. And tune in to watch Kayla and Team Canada this weekend, because one more win and they're off to the Olympics in Tokyo. Go Canada, go!
The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in the House to pay tribute to Shirley Judge, who passed away earlier this week at the age of 75. Together with her husband Vince, Shirley was a pillar of the Listowel and North Perth community. Through her faith, music, and kind encouragement, she was a loving influence on everyone she met. She was a kindergarten teacher, taught Sunday school, and was a church organist for more than 3 decades. She sang with the Beaton Sisters, was an honorary member of the Baptist Women's Association of Ontario and Quebec, and was a quiet yet determined force on so many campaigns. To her husband Vince, her children Kelly, John, and Greg, and their 7 grandchildren, I offer my deepest sympathies. Through sorrow and grief, we can take comfort in the memory of a life filled with love. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard, Saint-Michel. Madam Speaker, in this Black History Month and as a woman, I'd like to recognize the extraordinary contributions of a woman who turns 93 on February 9th, 2020. She's not very well known outside of my riding. I'm talking about Felicidades J. Joseph. She arrived in 1971 and shortly thereafter founded the Haitian-Canadian Quebecer Welfare Association, whose mission is to improve the living conditions of the Haitian community, foster job creation, help the disadvantaged, and promote the cultural heritage of people of Haitian origin and their positive integration into Quebec and Canadian society. Despite her advanced age, she's almost 93. She's still on her feet and is incredibly helpful to all the underprivileged communities in my riding. The honor is all yours, Ms. Joseph. Happy birthday.
L'honorable député de Sudbury.
The honourable member for Sudbury.
Depends on how much you practice and how you are taught. Earlier this month, Ontario's Education Quality and Accountability Office awarded Sudbury Secondary School the Dr. Betty Stevenson Recognition of Achievement Award for student success in mathematics. The school teaches key math concepts repeatedly. It's called space practice or spiraling. 71% of students say that spiraling helps them retain information. Je veux féliciter and want to congratulate Principal Heather Downey and her devoted staff, including Crystal Gibbs, Janet Lankshire, Clinton James, and Ryan Wilson, on the impact of their efforts at Sudbury Secondary School. Vos efforts ont été reconnus.
Your efforts have been recognized.
Teaching and learning math are making a real difference. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Merci.
The honourable member for Cloverdale Langley City.
Madam Speaker, seniors today face many difficult challenges, including housing, healthcare, finances, neglect, and abuse. They need community, and they need to remain active in order to stay healthy and feel engaged. So that's why I'm honored to rise today to recognize the Langley Senior Resource Centre and the invaluable benefits it provides to seniors in Langley and the surrounding communities. Since 1982, the mission of the centre has been to deliver services aimed at meeting the emotional, physical, and social needs of the seniors. I was recently given a wonderful tour of the facility and saw firsthand what they have to offer. Recreational programs, wellness programs, tax clinics, art classes, and exciting day trips. The centre offers this in part by using proceeds from their cafe and thrift store, as well as the selfless efforts of many volunteers. I'm grateful for this opportunity to express my appreciation for the Langley Seniors Resource Centre and the work they do for seniors in my riding.
The honourable member for Lac Saint Louis.
This Black History Month, I would like to draw the attention of this House to 2 young dynamic leaders who are making a difference in Montreal's West Island. Kemba Mitchell and Akila Newton. As president of the West Island Black Community Association, Kemba and her team, including Joan Lee and Maria Durant, are leading this long-standing pillar of the West Island Community Groups Network into a new era with new and varied activities. Akila Newton has channeled her passion for the arts into grassroots community action. A graduate of the Liverpool Institute for the Performing Arts, she returned to the West Island to create Overture with the Arts, a nonprofit organization that enables young people to pursue their passion in the performing arts when financial circumstance may not otherwise permit. Through their community vision and contributions, Kemba and Akila are strengthening our community and enriching the quality of life of West Islanders.
Bravo.
The honourable member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
Madam Speaker, last week at the Cornwall Civic Complex, we had the honour and privilege to welcome Ontario's premier curling event, the 2020 Ontario Curling Championships. 18 of the best men's and women's teams from across southern Ontario, some of the best curling teams in the entire world for that matter, battled for the right to represent Ontario in this year's Tim Hortons Brier and Scotty's Tournament of Hearts. The City of Cornwall and the Cornwall Curling Club did a fantastic job as hosts of the tournament and were able to cast a spotlight on some of the finest restaurants, hotels, and shopping venues in Eastern Ontario. I was fortunate to take in the women's final on Saturday night, along with hundreds of curling fans from across the province. A big congratulations to Team Homan and Team Epping on the respective wins. I wish you all the best of luck representing Ontario in the Brier and Scotties later this month. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Madam Speaker, I rise in the House today to bring attention to an important policy matter that greatly affects my riding, single-game sports betting. In 2008, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled to legalize this activity in all 50 states. Consequently, single-game sports betting has been legalized in cross-border states like New York, Michigan, and Montana. Meanwhile, this activity remains illegal in Canada. As the North American gaming and entertainment industry changes before our eyes, Canadian casinos like those in Niagara Falls are disadvantaged and struggling to compete in this new environment. Single-game sports betting is hugely popular and has the potential to generate billions for our economy through new job creation, attracting tourism and investment, and future industry growth. However, as long as it remains illegal, these opportunities will be lost to our American competition. I look forward to working with all my colleagues in all parties in this Parliament to bring attention to this issue and to advocate change by supporting efforts to legalize single-game sports betting in Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for St. John's East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On January 17th, a record-breaking blizzard hit Newfoundland and Labrador. The storm shut down many communities, including in the St. John's area, where the state of emergency lasted 8 days. Under state of emergency laws, businesses were legally prevented from opening and streets were closed to traffic, preventing people from working. Many low-income workers lost up to a week's income, leaving people struggling to pay for rent and utilities. Lost revenue also hurt small businesses and restaurants. The Federal Disaster Relief Assistance Program supports provinces dealing with large-scale natural disasters, but specifically excludes loss of income. We need the government to act now to allocate resources to support people and businesses suffering from the consequences of this storm and look at establishing a permanent program to address lost income. The effects of climate change could lead to many more disasters of this magnitude and worse in years to come. Those who can least afford to endure the loss of income should not be the ones forced to bear it. If there's no existing program, the upcoming...
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Madam Speaker, I'd like to pay tribute to Monique Lérac, who passed away in December at the age of 91. A grande dame from a neighbouring riding, having chosen to live out her final years in Sutton, in the Eastern Townships, because that's where she wanted to live. Her friend François Dompierre put it so well. She led her life how she wanted to. She was a feminist in her everyday life long before it was fashionable. And until recently, she was able to have a peaceful retirement in her own home, admiring her garden, as we would wish for everyone. She was one of Quebec's greatest actors and singers of the last century, if not the greatest. She performed in some of the world's most famous venues. She sang the songs of the greats of Quebec music, Vigneault, Léveillé, Ferland, Plamondon, and many more. In fact, a tribute exhibition will be held at the Musée des Communications et d'Histoire in Sutton from June 20th to October 12th, 2020. The Bloc Québécois joins me in offering our most sincere condolences to her family.
Madam Speaker, media reports say that during Wednesday's caucus meeting, the Prime Minister, quote, heard an earful from his caucus, passionately urging his cabinet not to approve Teck Resources' $20 billion project in Alberta. Shameful. Well, Mr. Speaker, maybe he should do what Richard Nixon did and call in a plumber's unit to plug the leaks. But in the meantime, we also now know that they are planning some kind of aid package as a ridiculous Plan B. Mr. Speaker, Alberta doesn't want aid. Alberta wants to work. Alberta wants its economy back. Alberta wants the federal government to stop making things worse. If this Prime Minister decides to set aside the scientific, evidence-based recommendation to approve this project, which has strong local Indigenous support, and instead decides to make a political decision to kill the project in order to placate his backbenchers and the separatist bloc who are currently propping up his government, he will provoke a national unity crisis.
The honourable member for Sault-Sainte-Marie.
Like many communities across Canada, my riding of Sault Ste. Marie celebrates the winter season with an annual celebration. This year, the 57th Bonsu Winter Carnival takes place from January 31st to February 9th. There are more activities added every year. It is truly a carnival with something for everyone. Organizations from across the riding come together to offer unique experiences, such as the Bonsu Mario Super Kart Smash, the Sioux College Annual Powwow, the snowshoeing at the Indian Friendship Center, the City of Sault Ste. Marie Torchlight Skate, and for truly the brave, the Polar Bear Swim, often emulated but never copied fully. Bonsu is a labor of love for countless of volunteers, community organizations, and sponsors. Madam Speaker, I know you know the winters in Northern Ontario can be a challenge in February. So Siouxites warm themselves up during this time of year, and I would like to invite you, Madam Speaker, and all of this House to join us in Sault Ste. Marie at Bonsu. Thank you.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Lakeland.
Madam Speaker, apparently the Liberals are considering aid for Alberta as cover to reject Frontier. Albertans are not refugees or evacuees from a natural disaster. We are inventors, creators, risk takers, entrepreneurs, and innovators. We want free markets and a level playing field, but it's Liberal government policy that's turning Albertans into victims. Clearly, the Liberals don't get Alberta. Albertans don't want government handouts or bailouts. We just want to work. So when will the Liberals get out of the way and let Alberta do what it does best for the good of Canada and for the world?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for her question. We were elected in 2015 and again in 2019 to grow the economy and protect the environment. Madam Speaker, we have processes in place for projects such as Teck. We are moving through that process. The process is now at the phase where Cabinet will need to make a decision by the end of February, Madam Speaker. When the time comes, I look forward to them sharing that with this House and Canadians from coast to coast. Thank you.
For Lakeland.
But, Madam Speaker, the science and evidence is already in, and the experts have already spoken. Teck Frontier is in Canada's public national interest. It met every condition. The only thing left is a political decision, and now the Liberals are trying to move the goalposts again. And their double standards only ever apply to Alberta. But the actual experts say that not approving Teck will increase global emissions. So will the Liberals approve Teck Frontier? Yes or no?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my honourable colleague once again for her question. Madam Speaker, we're following the process that was actually in place under the previous government. We've been working through that process. In 2016, we put in place the Joint Review Panel, Madam Speaker. 2018, consultations ended on the project, and now we're in a position, Madam Speaker, where Cabinet will be making a decision on all of the factors surrounding this project. They will share that with Canadians and this House by the end of February. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
The only thing left is a decision decision by politicians, the experts have already weighed all the factors. Albertans are world leaders in oil and gas innovation for environmental protection, for the benefit of all Canadians. And a strong Alberta does make a strong Canada. Albertans want all industries and all provinces to thrive, but Alberta alone is held back and put down by these Liberals. The Liberals are turning a national opportunity into a national unity crisis. So when will they approve Tech Frontier?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And once again, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for her question and her passion with regards to this issue. I'd like to repeat for this House once again, for those who are unaware, Cabinet has until the end of February to render that decision. It will be shared with this House and all Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We look forward to that decision being shared with all Canadians, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Madam Speaker, we just need the Liberal government, or the Liberal government only has to say no to a $20 billion, to 10,000 jobs, to 14 First Nations who agree with the project, to say no to a project that followed every step respectfully and managed to get approved. So the problem is this government, which says no to a project that's good for Canadian unity and good for all Canadians. When will they understand common sense? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, thank you. I want to thank my honourable colleague for her question. In 2015 and again in 2019, Canadians decided to elect a Liberal government on a promise to build a better economy and protect our environment. That's what we've been doing since 2015, Madam Speaker. There's a process to be followed. We are following it. And the process says that we have until the end of February to make a decision. When that decision's made, we will share it with all members of this House and all Canadians. Thank you. Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Madam Speaker, other studies were published concluding that in Quebec last year, 10 billion litres of oil were consumed. That represents an increase. 62% of that oil comes from where? The U.S. If the Liberals want to encourage Donald Trump, they can do that. But we would like to encourage our local oil industry. The Tech project is good for Canada and good for Quebecers and good for the economy. That's why we don't understand why the Liberal government won't approve this project that's good for everyone. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I want to thank my colleague again for his question. We are working hard to support the energy sector in Alberta. We approved the Trans Mountain project, we set up Line 3, and now we are in a position where we need to make a decision about the Tech project. We're following the process. We have until the end of February to make a decision and to make it public. And when it's time to do so, we will be pleased to share that decision with all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Madam Speaker, well, speaking about Trans Mountain, we've just learned that the construction costs for Trans Mountain have nearly doubled to nearly $30 billion. So we're talking about $18 billion along with the purchase price to pollute the planet. Is that the Liberals' plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050? $18 billion, is that the government's plan to fight climate change? The Honourable Minister.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, the Trans Mountain Expansion Project represents an investment in Canada's future. At a time when 99% of our energy exports are going to the U.S., Canadians understand that more than ever we need to diversify our markets. The project is being built, and thousands of Canadians are working hard in Alberta and BC on it. Every dollar that the federal government gets from the project will be invested in the energy transition to clean energy. We will fund clean projects that will help our future. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Madam Speaker, Tech Frontier is a project that cannot be reconciled with fighting climate change. The Parliamentary Secretary for Science stated that the government has committed to being carbon neutral by 2050 and said that his constituents and grandchildren expect the government to meet that target. I also agree with the Liberal member for Beaches East York, who said that if the government is truly committed to science and to being carbon neutral by 2050, saying no to Tech Frontier should be a no-brainer. Could we have silence, please, so that the Honourable Member can ask her question? Merci. Thank you. Can I start over?
La moitié de la salle.
I think half of this House was not able to hear my question, Madam Speaker, and I would ask if I could restart. I believe that the question was understood, and the honourable member was getting to the end of the question. So I'll ask the minister to respond to the question. I wasn't done asking my question. Okay, I'll ask the minister or the member to finish her question so the minister can answer. As I was saying, I agree with the Liberal member for Beaches East York who said that if the government is truly committed to science and carbon neutrality, saying no to Tech Frontier should be a no-brainer. I agree with that member. So will the government reject Tech Frontier? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for her question. In 2015 and again in 2019, we put forward a plan to fight climate change and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We put forward 50 different actions to reach that objective that will help us not only help us meet our Paris targets, but exceed them and ensure that Canada will be carbon neutral by 2050. We need to do this not only for ourselves, but for our children and grandchildren, and we're going to get there.
The honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
We learned this week that the government plans to hide the massive total cost of the construction of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Now, the private sector walked away from this pipeline, and the company already admits to growing construction costs of $13 billion. Liberals paid $1 billion more than market value for TMX. Total costs are now nearly $20 billion. Making this the biggest fossil fuel subsidy in Canadian history. You can't be a climate leader splurging money on pipelines. Why is the government trying to hide the massive costs to Canadians?
Hear, hear. L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mountain Expansion Project is an investment in Canada's future. At a time when 99% of our energy exports go only to the United States, Canadians understand that more than ever, we need to diversify our market. Construction on the project is underway with thousands of Canadians hard at work in Alberta and British Columbia. Every dollar the federal government earns from the project will be invested in Canada's clean energy transition funding, the clean energy projects that will power our homes, businesses, and communities for years to come. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Sauf que ça paie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. But the problem is that it's already losing money. The Liberals are prepared to pay billions of dollars to subsidize fossil fuels instead of helping people who really need it. On drug insurance, for example, buying a $4.5 billion pipeline and then spending another $13 billion to build it, instead of having universal drug coverage, just doesn't make any sense and is totally irresponsible. Will the government finally do the right thing and invest in a universal medication insurance program instead of wasting money on pipelines? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, as I was saying earlier, the Trans Mountain Expansion Project represents an investment in Canada's future. The project is being built, and thousands of Canadians are working in Alberta and BC on it. Every dollar that the government gets from the project will be invested in the clean energy transition. It will serve to fund clean energy projects. By moving forward with TMX, we are protecting and creating thousands of jobs. We're diversifying our markets, accelerating the transition to a clean energy sector, and creating new opportunities.
Langley Eldergrove.
Madam Speaker, yesterday the Minister for Public Safety misled this House when he said that Conservatives would do nothing about gun violence. That's not true. We would tackle the real issues. It's gang members that are committing gun violence, not the law-abiding citizens in my riding that go to the Langley Rod and Gun Club and the Langley Shooting Club. They're telling us that we need to put gang members behind bars, not simply duplicate laws that have been on the books for decades. What don't the Liberals understand about that?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Now, what we've heard all across the country is that we need stricter gun control laws. We need to ban military-style rifles. I know that even in my own riding, gun crime has had serious consequences, and it's clear that the government needs to take action.
We need to hear the answer.
So, Madam Speaker, I still don't understand why the Conservatives are talking about law and order when they cut funding to the CBSA. We know that there are a lot of guns that come illegally into the country. They made cuts to the RCMP, to correctional services. So they can talk, but we've taken action to protect Canadians. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Well, this is where you can see that we need to have a debate on this issue, a debate about the buyback program. The Liberals want to buy back guns from law-abiding gun owners who bought their guns legally, when, in fact, illegal guns are the real problem. Most of the crimes committed were by illegal guns. So why doesn't the government want to debate this in the House? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I find it surprising to hear a Quebec member saying this when we know about the Polytechnique massacre, when we know that in Sainte-Foy, for example, a young man with a license came with a VZ-58, a military-style assault weapon, to commit crimes. So this is, clearly we don't want to attack law-abiding gun owners. Our goal is to make our communities safer, and that means banning those military rifles. They cut $400 million and 1,000 full-time jobs from the border. They didn't take action. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Madam Speaker, talking about the Polytechnique and the Quebec Mosque are two tragedies that should never have happened, but we're talking about over 2 million law-abiding gun owners in Canada who are using guns for legitimate means. Illegal guns are the problem in Canada. They are the ones that are causing deaths in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. That's what we need to tackle. And the government wants to have an order in council rather than having a bill debated in this House to deal with that. Why? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we made a commitment during the election. It was very clear. We said that we would ban military assault weapons. And this is something that we heard was needed all across Canada. So this type of question doesn't make sense when he was taking photos with the gun lobby this summer. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Madam Speaker, when asked about Canada's policy in the South China Sea, our ambassador to China drew a blank. When asked about a Canadian in prison in China for 15 years, he didn't seem to know basic details.
Wow.
He had to be corrected by the member for Sherwood Park Fort, Saskatchewan.
Incredible.
First impressions matter, and Canadians' first impressions of the Liberal-appointed ambassador were weak at best. How many times will we have to step in and cover for the ambassador's mistakes, Madam Speaker?
That's right.
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Madam Speaker, I'm so proud to see you there on the chair. I'd like to say to my honourable colleague, he won't have to do that, Madam Speaker. We are very proud of Ambassador Barton's work. He brings a wealth of experience. That's the type of Canadians we would like to attract into the public service, representing Canada, bringing his wealth of experience, defending Canadian interests in China at a time where we need someone strong who understands the deep nature of the relationship that we have with China, Madam Speaker. We are very proud of his work and will support him every step of the way.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Madam Speaker, that is the member there that had to correct the ambassador. And speaking of his deep knowledge, this is not just an ambassador who's expressed a lack of awareness, but one that begs serious questions. He ran a company which worked with Chinese state-owned enterprises and held a retreat next door to a Uyghur Muslim concentration camp. He's publicly stated, and I quote, drank the Kool-Aid on China. How can Canadians believe that someone with such strong ties to China will be looking out for our country's national interest, Madam Speaker?
Madam Madam Speaker, I have the utmost respect for my honourable colleague. At the time where we have a health emergency, I think this House should be behind our public service and behind Ambassador Barton. We're trying to make sure that we provide all the consular services to our Canadians who are now in China, who need our assistance. We will be behind Ambassador Barton every step of the way, and I would urge this House to be behind our public service at a time where we need everyone to look in the same direction, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Brandon Surrey.
Speaker, the illegal Unifor blockades at Co-op's Regina refinery and fuel terminals and the intimidation tactics, such as paintballing people's homes, has gone too far. It's well within the rights of Canadians to engage in labour action, but in no uncertain terms should illegal actions be condoned. Due to these illegal blockades, the Verdun Co-op and many more in Manitoba and the prairies will be out of fuel by Monday. So, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, will the government act to defend the rule of law and ensure that these communities will be getting a reliable fuel supply by early next week?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear. This dispute is a provincial issue. We are aware of the dispute at the refinery. Our government has faith in and believes in the collective bargaining process. We encourage both parties to work together to resolve the dispute. The government of Saskatchewan has announced their intention to assist the parties, but again, this is a provincial issue.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Madam Speaker, yesterday a process for claims was set up for people who were seriously affected by Phoenix. For 4 years, the system has not been working. It is irreparable. Meanwhile, the president of the Treasury Board says he wants to force 3,900 civilian RCMP employees into the Phoenix system. Will this government promise not to push these employees into Phoenix when there are already so many problems and so many victims to be compensated? President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's totally unacceptable that a public servant of Canada would not be paid on time and correctly. That's why we have been working very hard for the last months and years to ensure that this system will work and eventually be replaced by a next-generation system that will do the work correctly. For the RCMP, the same thing applies. No RCMP employee will be transferred to the new system if there's a risk of mistreatment. The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Madam Speaker, yesterday in an interview, the President of the Treasury Board was talking about compensating people who had to withdraw RRSPs or suffer investment losses due to the Phoenix pay system. But it's not just a question of money. Phoenix pay issues have had an impact on people's personal lives as well. We're talking about separations and suicides. RCMP workers, understandably, don't want to go through that. So can the President of the Treasury Board give us some proof that the Phoenix pay system is stable and reliable before anyone else has to go through it? The Honourable Treasury Board President. Madam Speaker, this would allow me to add that there are serious professional and personal consequences of Phoenix. We recognize the impact that's had on workers and their families and also on the public service. There are all too many stories of people who are afraid to take leave or accept promotions, and that's unacceptable. So we absolutely need this system to be stabilized, and we need to move to a system that works correctly as soon as possible.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Madam Speaker, recently a Liberal-appointed panel recommended amending the government-run CBC Radio Canada mandate to include Indigenous content. But the report failed to acknowledge one key point, that APTN, an Indigenous-owned, Indigenous-run private network, is exclusively devoted to doing just that. Mm-hmm. Why does the government, why is it formally recommending that it can do a better job of delivering Indigenous content than Indigenous people?
Exactly. Good question. The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, our government thanked the panel for the ambitious work it has undertaken for delivering the final report. We are looking at the recommendation in this report and plan to take actions as swiftly as possible. Thank you very much.
For Calgary-Nose Hill.
I don't think that the minister realizes how incredibly paternalistic the comment that he just made was. Yeah. The fact that this report failed to acknowledge an Indigenous owned and run network and then said that the Canadian state could do a better job of delivering Indigenous content, and then he says he's just going to implement this recommendation right away and sits down. It's crazy. Will he apologize?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do wonder if the member opposite has actually read the report, because one of her colleagues welcomed the report and said he would be happy to work with us for its implementation. Madam Speaker, my department officials would be happy to organize a briefing to any members of the Conservative Party who would like to better understand this report. Thank you very much.
Honourable member for Canada, Prince George. Cody Ledger-Balka viciously murdered Natasha Montgomery, Jill Stachenko, Cynthia Mass, and 15-year-old Lauren Leslie. In 2014, he was sentenced to life with no parole. Last January, the victims' families found out through media reports that he had been reclassified and transferred from maximum security to medium security, despite the fact that he has never admitted any guilt. He has shown no remorse, and he refuses to disclose the location of Natasha Montgomery's remains. When will this minister finally do the right thing and put this animal back where he belongs?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Our thoughts and prayers, obviously, are with the family of the victim. This is the type of tragedy that we never want to see in this country. I think that we need to trust the parole board and the independent work that they do. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Bow River.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We recently learned that Destination Canada spent $550,000 on 550 stock photos. That's $1,000 a photo. I'm all for promoting travel to our great country, Madam Speaker, but this seems a little ridiculous. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but $1,000? Does this government believe this was the taxpayers' money well spent, or is it just another example of Liberal government spending waste?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, thank you. I thank my colleague for his question. Pendant trop longtemps, le secteur.
For too long, the tourism sector was given the cold shoulder. Our government believes in the 2 million people who work in the tourism sector. That's why we invested over $65 million in our new federal strategy for tourism. We're going to create 50,000 new jobs and increase revenue by over 25%. We take tourism seriously, and we know that these workers have a promising future in Canada.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's trip across the globe to try for a Security Council seat is likely much too little, much too late. While other countries vying for a seat have invested in people and committed to meeting international development assistance targets, this Prime Minister has the worst record in Canadian history. Even compared to Conservatives, he's driven us backwards on international aid, on peacekeeping, and on climate change targets. How can the Prime Minister ask for the world's support without providing support of our own?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Canada is very proud of our role in the world. We have committed to ambitious climate change targets and ambitious climate change financing. We have committed to a feminist international assistance policy which is making real differences in the lives of women all across this world. Madam Speaker, I was recently in the Democratic Republic of Congo where I saw firsthand the work that we're doing when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to peacekeeping, when it comes to climate change. Madam Speaker, we can be very proud of the work that Canada is doing around the world, and the world recognizes it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Madam Speaker, the Liberals propped up the Conservatives' draconian Bill C-51, which essentially included economic disruption as a form of domestic terrorism. The Prime Minister ran and was elected to amend Bill C-51 and protect Canada's civil liberties, but he broke that promise. Indigenous communities, environmentalists, workers, and anybody standing up for social justice are still the target of anti-terrorism protocols. Will the Prime Minister acknowledge that people peacefully protesting in Canada are not, in fact, terrorists?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente, et je pense...
Thank you very much. I think many of my colleagues, along with millions of Canadians, share the feeling of outrage when we saw the Conservative government go forward with Bill C-51 at the time. That's why we added mechanisms, including a parliamentary committee to supervise our intelligence and security agencies. We will always defend the right to peacefully protest and to express one's opinions. The Honourable Member for Orléans. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This year, we're celebrating the 30th week of international development organizations. Can the Minister of International Development tell us more about this week and how Canadians can help achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Program goals? The Honourable Minister. I would like to thank my colleague for the question and for her support for international development organizations. I would also like to thank members of all parties for having participated in activities to celebrate the 30th anniversary of International Development Week. This is an opportunity to highlight the excellent work accomplished by Canadians around the world to help reach the Sustainable Development Objectives and build a better world. I would also like to encourage all parliamentarians to learn more about the work done by international development organizations in their communities.
For Cypress Hills, Grassland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This Liberal carbon tax is making life more expensive for rural Canadians. The carbon tax is a tax on everything. Food, gas, home heating. These aren't luxuries. They're basic necessities. The people in rural Canada shouldn't have to pay more because this government doesn't understand where we live or the way that we live. That's right. When will the Liberals do the right thing and get rid of the carbon tax?
Hear, hear. Do the right thing.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. In 2015, we put forward a promise to put a price on carbon pollution in this country. We know it's one of the most effective ways of reducing our GHG emissions. We put forward a promise to say that more money would be put in the pockets of families than they would have to pay in the carbon price. The PBO report just came out showing that that is indeed the case, Madam Speaker. We delivered on our promise. We're going to continue to take climate action, Madam Speaker. We know it's the best thing to do for our kids and grandkids.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Simcoe Grey.
Madam Speaker, a new report shows that the Liberal carbon tax will reduce farm incomes by 8% this year and 12% by 2022. And no, Madam Speaker, the little rebate check will not cover the cost of this tax grab. One farmer told me since the tax has been imposed, his increase has been $1,200 a month. Our farmers are left with two choices. Number one, take the pay cut, or number two, raise prices on Canadians that are already starting to struggle. My question, can the Liberals please tell the farmers which choice they prefer?
Right on.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We understand full well what is happening this year in agriculture. 2019 was very difficult, whether it be the weather or international trade. That is why I'm working closely with our provincial colleagues and representatives of the industry to find the best solutions and the best mechanisms that will help our farmers throughout the country to face this difficult situation and to look towards the future and make investments and make the right choices to ensure that our agriculture remains sustainable.
Member for Dauphin, Swan River, Nipah.
Madam Speaker, in 2019, Manitoba chicken producers have seen a 42% increase on their heating bills due to the carbon tax.
Shame.
With an escalating carbon tax, Manitoba chicken producers expect to see a 100% increase on their heating bills by 2022, resulting in millions of dollars of lost revenue and no proven benefits to our environment. Madam Speaker, first it was the grain farmers, then it was the dairy farmers, and now it's the chicken farmers. Why does this government continue to fail and neglect our farm families?
Hear, hear.
Definitely don't neglect our farmers. We care for them, and we really care for them, and this is why we are working so closely to find the best solution to support them for sustainable agriculture. Madam Speaker, we have taken measures concerning the price and pollution because we know that the rural community and farmers do have to pay differently. We have given them exemptions on gas on farm and card lock also for their use of gas on farm. We understand their special challenges and we are working to improve other programs as well. Thank you.
The honourable member for Regina Leuven.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We now know why this Ag Minister wants to stand shoulder to shoulder with our farmers. It's so that she can reach even further into their pockets and take more from a carbon tax. Saskatchewan farmers can expect to lose over 12% of their income to the carbon tax once it hits $50 per tonne. When will the Ag Minister stop bankrupting farm families, cancel their income-killing carbon tax, and return the money that has already been taken from our producers?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I can assure you that we're working closely with farmers, their representatives, and our provincial colleagues to put in place the mechanisms that will help our farmers for sustainable agriculture. There are exemptions that have been made, particularly for gas used by farmers on farm. We're exploring different mechanisms, but everyone understands that we need to have a vision of the future for our planet, and that's what we're doing. We recognize that 2019 was an extremely difficult year, and that's why we're working with them. Thank you. The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Madam Speaker, CN wants to close its Rail Traffic Control Centre in Montreal to centralize operations in Alberta. It's an injustice for Quebec's railway controllers, and it will make communication in French very difficult with railway workers. It's going to be a security issue if instructions provided only in English are not understood by conductors or railway workers. Will the Liberal government act so that CN reviews this decision?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We recognize the concerns raised by the honourable member opposite. Our government remains committed to railway safety as well as security, efficiency and environmental responsibility. I'd be happy to have the minister discuss this with him at a later time. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Madam Speaker, as the number of railway incidents is constantly increasing in Quebec, CN is going to make things worse. In Montreal, there's 60 controllers to manage Eastern Canada, and CN wants to replace them with 35 controllers centralized in Edmonton for the entire country. We're going to have fewer controllers, and they will be unable to communicate in French. Will the government intervene with CN?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we always share concerns about official languages in Canada. It's necessary to ensure people's safety, and we have to protect the French language throughout the country. Of course, the minister is going to review the situation when it comes to security and protecting languages.
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Here.
Madam Speaker, yesterday in the House, in response to a question about what the government is doing to address the addictions crisis we are experiencing on our streets, the Minister of Health failed to outline a solution that would help those battling addiction. The Minister continues to prioritize harm reduction strategies without mentioning treatment or recovery.
Shameful.
People battling addiction deserve the opportunity to enter treatment immediately when they need it.
That's right.
When will the government start making treatment and recovery a priority to help people with addiction?
Good question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would thank my colleague for the question.
The opioid crisis is the most significant public health issue in Canada's recent history, and our hearts are with those who have lost a loved one. We have responded by investing over $425 million in emergency responses, restoring harm reduction, and approving over 40 supervised consumption sites, and cutting red tape and removing barriers to treatments. We will continue to tackle this health care crisis. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Madam Speaker, people in Parry Sound, Muskoka, like so many in Northern Ontario, are frustrated with the high price and low quality of internet and cell phone services. We keep hearing the promises to fix it, but areas like Port Loring, Kearney, Whitestone are still dramatically underserviced. It's bad for residents, hurts the economy, and it even puts personal safety at risk. Madam Speaker, no more talk, no more promises. Will the minister accept my invitation to come to Parry Sound, Muskoka to experience firsthand what rural Canadians experience every single day?
Great. Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague across the way. I'm also, too, from a rural community and understand the challenge of broadband. Our government is focused on improving quality and coverage and the price of telecom services of Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We know we need the services for health, for education, for business, for tourism, and, of course, for education. Our previous program is finishing up. I look forward to working with the member opposite at any time if he has ideas how we can advance the broadband file further. Thank you.
Good job.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, many homes and businesses in my riding live with internet connections and cell phone networks that are spotty or non-existent, and I'm part of them. Some companies have even gone so far as to park some of their projects. The Liberal government promised to connect 100% of Canadians by 2030, and we claim to be a developed country. Why is the government acting faster to connect taxpayers and help them get into the 21st century too?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madame la Présidente, merci.
Madam Speaker, thank you.
The honourable colleague for his question. I can assure him that our government is focused on ensuring that our laws keep pace with Canada's rapidly evolving telecommunications landscape and that Canadians can continue to receive world-class services. We thank the panel for all the work it's done. We are focused on this challenge and we will have some decisions in the coming months. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Whitby.
Madam Speaker, people in my riding of Whitby are concerned about climate change and the environment. It was one of the top concerns I heard at the doors last fall. My constituents in many along the shores of the Great Lakes have and are experiencing unprecedented flooding over the last several years. This has caused shoreline erosion and property damage. Climate change is here and presents real challenges for communities across Canada. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change inform the House of the government's progress on tackling climate change and protecting our environment?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Whitby for his question and his dedication to a clean environment and taking climate action. Both in the doorsteps and at the polls, Madam Speaker, it was clear that a majority of Canadians voted for immediate and ambitious climate action, and that's exactly what our government is delivering on. Together, we'll set a target to achieve net zero by 2050, help make energy-efficient homes more affordable, introduce measures to being clean, efficient, and affordable communities, and make it easier for people to buy electric vehicles. Canadians expect parliamentarians to work together to deliver on these promises, and that's exactly what we're going to do, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, siblings Callum and Aislinn Stepanek of St. Albert, ages 7 and 12, have cystic fibrosis carrying the R117H mutation. Due to a lack of approval, they're unable to receive the life-extending drug Kalydeco. Every day that they can't access this drug shortens their life expectancy. Why should Callum and Aislinn have to wait, given that the U.S. FDA has approved this drug for children with this mutation 6 years and older?
Hear, hear. Hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know the importance of patient access to new therapies for serious or life-threatening conditions. It is the manufacturer's decision to apply to market their product in Canada. For serious or life-threatening conditions, such as cystic fibrosis, physicians may request access to the drug through the Special Access Program. To help Canadians get better access to effective treatments, we are working with provinces, territories, and other partners to develop a national strategy for high-cost drugs for rare diseases. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Madam Speaker, the wine industry in Windsor, Essex, and across Canada is facing an uncertain future because of Australia's trade challenge that claims Canada's federal excise duty exemption on 100% Canadian-made wines is discriminatory. We are about 7 weeks away from the World Trade Organization's interim report. Canadians who work in the wine industry are worried. When will the Liberals pick up the phone and get a settlement with the Australians?
Hear, hear.
Hey, hey.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I can assure you that our government places great value on the wine industry and its contribution to Canada's reputation as an agricultural producer that is world-class. We'll continue to defend Canadian workers and our industry. We've explored ways to resolve this conflict with Australia, and we will continue to work very closely with provinces on this issue to defend Canadian workers of the industry. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. The lack of available workers is a major problem. I have 6 businesses in Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier who have set up a foreign worker cooperative pilot project. No money was requested, and it's a solution to help our regions and businesses. The former Liberal minister didn't get it. I'm asking to meet with the new Labour minister. Will this Liberal minority government be able to work with me to find a solution for Canadian entrepreneurs? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of course, I would love to meet with my colleague. We need workers all throughout Canada. We have a lot of jobs here, and I'm very pleased that we've announced another $34 million, another increase of jobs. That's 1.1 million jobs created by the government. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kings Heads.
Madam Speaker, the agriculture sector in Canada contributes over $100 billion annually to our GDP and is responsible for 1 in 8 Canadian jobs. Our farmers, ranchers, and producers from across the country proudly feed Canadians and the world with their incredible products. On February 11th, we'll be celebrating Canadian Agricultural Day to highlight their contributions and thank them for their hard work. Could my honourable colleague, the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, inform this House on the government's work to ensure the growth and prosperity of Canada's agricultural sector?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Greatest appreciation. They care for our environment. They care for their animals. They are a source of inspiration. Our government has ambitious plans for agriculture, reaching $75 billion in exports by 2025, finalizing compensation for supply management, improving business risk management programs, empowering women and youth in agriculture. Madame la Présidente, j'invite tous les...
Madam Speaker, I invite all Canadians to celebrate Canadian Agriculture Day on February 11th.
Madam Speaker, the recent snowstorm that hit Newfoundland and Labrador shut down entire communities. Small business owners and lost revenue, and many workers, especially hourly and low-wage earners, lost a week's pay. The Liberals campaigned on a promise to help with lost income in case of disaster, but we haven't seen any action yet. And workers in my province need help now. Climate change will lead to more and more disasters like this, so my question is, will the Liberals deliver on their promise and help those who need it right now?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the honourable member for his question. The stories of neighbours helping one another and our brave first responders working tirelessly to clear the snow and support those who lost power exemplify the spirit and resilience of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. Our government took immediate action by mobilizing the Canadian forces in areas affected by the storm. In addition, we've extended Service Canada hours. I've spoken personally with the minister. We are there. Our government reduced the wait time for EI to 1 week, and I can assure everyone in this House that we are there for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Madame la députée de Saint-Jean.
Pursuant to the standing orders and House procedures, I would call on the Speaker to... When I asked my question, you didn't allow me to finish it, and so if this were to happen again, I would hope this situation would not repeat itself. I'd like to thank the honourable colleague for her intervention. I had asked the honourable member to finish her question and not to start it over from the beginning. So I consider this matter closed.
With a point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on a point of order to offer clarification stemming from question period on Wednesday on the relationship between the RCMP and the Wet'suwet'en people. It's true that the Government of British Columbia has contracted services to RCMP, similar to many other jurisdictions. However, neither